And so what we've done is a representative from the audience has 3 questions to ask, and they're very pointed questions, and I'm delighted, I'm looking forward to answering them.
Mr. Miller, tell us why you founded Peace Engineering.
Well, that begins with my experience in Vietnam, and that was so powerful that that was 1970. And 10 years later, there came a moment when I realized that I could no longer keep everything inside, and I had to deal with it. So I left the service, I was in the Navy at the time, left the service and founded Peace Engineering Incorporated in Florida in 1982. And I've been working at it on and off since then, stayed in the airline industry and to support the family. And unfortunately, I worked for 7 airlines, all of which failed. But over time, I continued with work on peace engineering and connected with activists no matter where I lived. Lived in Florida and connected with people who were working on anti-nuclear weapon proliferation. And then I moved to Atlanta and met a wonderful doctor who worked at Emory. And he was part of the folks at Physicians for Social Responsibility. And then after the 6th airline, I think, I traveled to Washington, D.C. and stayed there for several months. And this is after George W. Bush was elected. And it was specifically, it was after 9/11. And I was so, as we all were, so distraught that I felt as though I had to be there in Washington, D.C., contributing to the addressing of all these monstrous issues. They were monstrous before 9/11, but after 9/11 they've become even more seemingly impossible to address.
Now, I have another question that related to that. I've heard that you'll be running for president, and I'm wondering how this all ties together.
Well, that's true. And someone asked me the other day, are you running again for president? And I said, no. Actually, I've been continually running since 1988. And that's true. And I'm excited about doing it again. And I think this time I'm going to go much further than I ever did before. And, well, we won't address what's happening now with all the other candidates. That would take too long. But I can tell you that the people I talk with now are thoroughly disgusted already. And it's not even August of the year before 2016. Back in '88, when I ran, there's always been the same level of disgust. People are thoroughly sick and tired of all that is happening to this minute. And back then, I would travel all over the country, and actually all over the world, with several airlines. And but even back in '88, people were saying the same thing. Thoroughly, I would say number one is that people would say, I'm not voting because I'm thoroughly disgusted with what happens all the time. They come to the town, they go on and on and on, they tell us, they make the promises, and then they go back to Washington and we discover that they've lied and they disappear. And that all the promises they made, they don't meet. They don't come back and talk with us except in re-election time. So they've been saying this over and over again. And the other point they always repeat is the point about money. Back then the money was whatever it was, but now they use the B word. It's not just millions and millions, it's billions. And so I can't even imagine how they feel now. Although, well, I can because they tell me. So the responses from the citizens has been the same all along. And what's most remarkable is that when I traveled, even 88 up to now, I would share that I was running for president as an independent, which seems impossible. And every time, last week or in '88, they would stop and then have a far-off look, and then they were thinking about all they know about campaigns and candidates. Then they would look back at me and they would say, I'll vote for you. So that's why. I am, but I will emphasize that from now until January 1st is the peace engineering emphasis, and then candidacy begins on January 1st. And thanks for asking that question.
Why January 1st?
Well, January 1st I thought I would use because it's the beginning of the year. And it's almost as if I would like to spare the citizens more complicated issue presentation until January 1st, because they have so much on their plates already with the governor of Ohio just tossed his hat in the ring yesterday, I believe. So I'm waiting until January 1st. And actually, if we were in other countries where they have much more efficient systems, I wouldn't begin until the middle of the year, because we had a short, efficient system. In any case, it's primarily because I wish to begin at the beginning of the actual year, 2016.
Thank you.
And how are you being received with your peace engineering and campaign?
Well, well, I won't say what candidates say. They say, well, Donald, thank you for asking that very important question. The answer is that here in this city, a lot of people know me, but they don't know that much about what I'm doing. So I'm revealing a lot more information. They've come to know about peace engineering, and they've come to know that because last year here in town, a friend and I did a feasibility study about peace, and we talked with 50 people in Dubuque, Iowa, which is where I am, and we discovered their responses about peace engineering, but particularly we discovered their response to the question, do you think humankind can develop peace on Earth by 2020? So there are at least 50 people in town who know much more about peace engineering, and more are coming to know about the candidacy. But again, I've been very careful about pointing out that I don't start till January 1st. But the responses have been good for the same reasons as I shared in the other answer. People are so anxious for someone who is honest and open and truthful, and especially so many people, this is another point I would mention, so many people are tired of the Democrat-Republican monolith, if you will, and many people believe that, I flew with a guy whose grandfather, who was probably born in maybe 1810, his grandfather said the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are joined at the hip. So there's that, and that's why, to answer your question, many people are very excited about someone who's an independent, who's connected directly with the citizens and not with the corporations and not with a particular party that's developed a very narrow doctrine. So that's why I'm excited, and that's why I feel as though the responses, for the most part, have been delightfully positive.